What is up, guys? It's Lucas with ProducePerform.com, and we're back with another video. This video, we're all going to talk about the mistakes that we're all making when we mix low end. And by we all, I mean the mistakes that I used to make literally all the time. And sometimes still do, but hopefully me recording this video is going to remind me not to make these mistakes. Sorry, I just saw myself in the screen, and I really need a haircut. Anyways, down below, mixing cheat sheet, EQ and compression settings, absolutely free. Check it out. Basically built for live worship recordings. Get you off on the right foot when it comes to EQ and compression. All right, let's dive in. So, number one. Actually, let me get these headphones on. Number one, we are going to talk about sidechaining. So you guys know, and you guys probably watched the video from last week, I love to sidechain stuff. Sidechaining is great. But here's the thing, doing full compression sidechaining, it doesn't really sound good. And it doesn't ultimately work, especially when you keep the tone. So you know, often we like to sidechain the the kick to the bass, right? And so just for example, I've done this. I have sidechained the kick bus to make the compressor react to the bass guitar. And so I'm just going to play that real quick.
Isn't it so wonderful, so beautiful?
So pretty much every time the kick hits a certain threshold, it brings down the entire sound of the bass guitar by a couple dB. You know, it's a smart move, but in reality, it doesn't work, especially because in worship music, especially in a lot of songs, they do these quicker kick builds, and there's something about the girthiness and like the attack of the bass that it just sounds good on those builds. And if you're taking the kick, which is hitting constantly on those 16th note builds, and then just pulling the bass down the entire time, it starts to sound weird. So then you have to go back and automate it, when in reality, you didn't even need to do it in the first place. Here's what you should do. This is a little bit similar to last week. What you should do is get something like an F6, some type of dynamic EQ or multi-band compressor, something where you can sidechain with it, and turn on your sidechain here, like we do here. Set it to your kick bus or whatever one of your kick channels. That doesn't matter which one. And then go to your low end and find where you need to kind of make space for the kick for that brief second of every time it hits. Because that's all you need is just that brief second where the kick is hitting, but you only really need that low end to come through. Ultimately, the bass and the kick, they only really compete in the low end, and so you really don't need to compress the whole bass. You just need to compress the low end of the bass for that split second, which is hardly noticeable because it's hard for us to actually hear the low end rather than just feel it. So what you do is you find the band, and so we're just gonna say this for an example. So say it's like 50 hertz. So you know what? We'll just type this in. Oh yeah, I got it right on 50. There we go. So say you want to pull 50 hertz down because that's where you want the kick to really shine through, but you want to keep 50 hertz on the bass guitar because it sounds good. So then you'll choose that, set the frequency, set it to external instead of the source. Set it to external. So now it's hearing the kick. And let me put these back to normal here. So now if I hit play, you're gonna see this threshold meter here. You're gonna see the actual kick coming through and not the bass guitar. So see how it's hitting every time. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna find a good threshold. So it's coming in pretty hot, so we don't need to go down very far. And then you're gonna hit this range. And I usually like to start around -3. Let's take it to like -6 just to see what happens here. And so I don't know if you guys noticed, but it's pretty subtle, but I can hear a little bit more of the sustain, the fullness of the kick. And I want you guys to notice that on this, I set the attack and release times as fast as I could get both of them, because again, it doesn't need to be this drawn out thing like in a hip hop song or a techno electronic song or something like that, because this music is completely different. So we need to compress differently for that. And so do this instead. That's number one. All right. So number two is we're focusing on the low mids instead of the sub. So often we like to look at the sub frequencies and try to make sure that, you know, anywhere from like 20 hertz to 80 hertz is like hitting hard and it's perfect. Well, I'll be honest, for a lot of music that is like this, like worship music, rock music, even some pop music, you really don't need to worry about the sub as much as you need to worry about where the low mids, because here's the thing: is a lot of power actually comes from the 1 to 500 frequency range. So I'm not really going to make an example of this because it's really just for you to sit down and figure it out. But the number two is just focus on the low mids. That's where a lot of that power comes from. And I know that like a lot of on the kick drum and stuff, we pull a lot of that 4 to 500 out because it's kind of boxy. But just be careful pulling out too much, because you can lose some of the power of the kick drum, and you can lose some of that those frequencies that actually help your mix, because there's a lot of time I find myself carving out too much of that area, and then all of a sudden it's like my mix is just missing the low mids, and it's because I did a lot. I carved out way too much, which kind of brings to point number three. Number three is too much carving. So we'll dive back in here, and I'll kind of show you guys what I mean. So what a lot of people like to do is on the bass, people like to look at the bass and then look at the kick. So I'm going to put a Pro Q 3 on the bass and the kick real quick, and we'll pin that. Open this back up. Okay. So right on the right, we have this bass guitar. On the left, we have the kick bus. So it's the overall kicks, which is a kick in, kick out, and a kick sub. And so let's just give these a listen real quick. So let's just listen to the kick real quick. Okay, cool. So we got a lot of kick hitting around 60. Okay, so this is what people will do. They will say, oh, well, the kick's hitting around 63, so I'm going to create a node here on the bass, and I'm going to then take out 63, okay? And so let me just I lost my Pro Q3. There we go. Okay. So let's listen to that. And so we're just going to carve that out. And then we're going to say, I like where the bass is sitting around 102, or we'll say 120 or something, right? And so then we'll go up to 120 on the kick, and we'll pull that out. I'll be honest, I feel like we just lost something. Like, see, they're off and then back on. Now, I know what probably some of you are saying. That sounds better. They're more separated. But do you want more separation? I think that's a question you should start asking yourself. Do you actually want more separation in your mix? How much separation is right? Because sometimes we do so much carving like this that it actually hurts the mix, because, again, you're mixing. You're not separating. Okay? And I'm not saying that you don't need to pull some frequencies out and do this or do that. But sometimes we get into this moment. This is something that I was notoriously bad at, because I was mixing with my eyes, not my ears. And so whenever I take these two EQs off, I honestly like it a lot more. I feel like they're both hitting hard. I don't feel like they're really getting in the way of each other. I think they both sound great. I think they both have room in the mix for them to exist in that low end area. So just be conscious of your carving. We like to be conscious carvers here. That was really dumb. Would have been better if this video came out in October because the conscious carvers and pumpkin. Okay, anyways. Okay, sorry. All right. Number 4. This is the last one. And this one, I don't hear many people talk about. But this is something that I learned the hard way. And because I would often feel like my kick sounds great, but it was just like, it was so much low end. But then when I would try to EQ low end out, it just didn't sound good, or just didn't sound right. I don't know if you guys have ever had that issue where it's like, man, there's something weird about the kick and I can't tell you what it is. It's too much sustain. Okay. So, an issue with a lot of, especially drum samples, is that it has this whole room sustain, or it's like the sample's like 4 or 5 seconds long or 3 seconds long, and that's just not real. Like, you don't hear or feel that whenever you're at a concert or even in like the studio. It's like there's so many other things happening. So with these kick samples, what you actually want to do, so let's just come in here. I don't know what is happening right now. There we go. Okay. So say you got trigger, and right now we're using the Frankie kick, okay, which is the Franklin kick from the Austin Davis collection. Very, very good kick. This is the sound. So sounds great, okay. We're going to which reverb is it going to actually? Sorry, I don't know which reverb it's going to. Is it that one? Yep. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'll get the reverb shut off so we can actually hear it. Okay, so this is the kick, dry in all of its glory, going through some compression and stuff, but that's not really the point. So can you hear like how long it trails off? Okay. Now, that's great. Sounds huge. But in a mix, that extra like second of sustain is just not necessary. So what we're going to come in and do is in your sample section here, you can link all these, and we'll just go ahead and do it, even though I'm only using the Frankie kick here. We're going to leave the attack alone, leave it at 7 milliseconds. We're going to bring the sustain down to about half a second. And then we're going to bring the release to about half a second as well. See how it's just in and out. And you can even get tighter. And just so we can kind of A-B it, I'm going to bring in another Frankie kick here. And we're going to unlink these. So this is the Frankie kick that we had. And then this is the new one. Like, the difference is crazy. Now, you may think in solo, the Frankie, the one with the full sustain sounds so much better. And I guess it does. But in a mix, you're actually saving all of that low end that you're never going to hear or feel anyway. And then it's the same thing with the toms, okay? With the toms, again, you do not need all of the sustain. So then we'll come down. And so I usually do this for almost all my drums, especially on the triggers and the samples themselves. Now, if you're not using triggers or samples, obviously you can still do this. One thing I like to do, so we'll solo this kick because there's probably still some sustain that we don't need. And of course I solo it in a spot where the kick's not kicking. There we go. So there's still maybe a little bit too much there. And so what I like to use is smack attack. And so this, you can obviously, use more sustain, more attack or whatever. But I like to just use it for the sustain knob sometimes just to get rid of some of that sustain. So let's hit play. So I don't know if you guys hear that now, it's really just bump, bump instead of the boom, boom. And that's my kick drum emulation. It's terrible. So before. It's almost like it's gating the sustain of the kick drum, if that makes sense. It's just taking some of that sustain out, which actually leaves more room for your guitars, your bass, and maybe other drums to come in into that frequency range, which is also great for your toms. So that is it. Those are 4 mistakes that you might be making to clean up your low end, to fix your low end, whatever. And to go back over them, stop doing full sidechain compression. Number 1, only do dynamic EQ certain areas where you're gonna do the sidechain compression. Number 2 is focus on the low mids more than you focus on the sub frequencies. The low mids are where your power comes from, especially when it comes to worship music. We're not making rap music or techno or whatever, dance music. Number 3 is too much carving. Stop trying to mix with your eyes that to where, you know, the bass is gonna live here and the kick is gonna live here. They can live in the same space and still sound really, really great. Okay. Too much carving means you're doing too much separating, and we're mixing, not separating. Remember that. And then number 4 is to be conscious of the sustain of your drums, specifically the kick and the floor tom. There can be a lot of sustain, especially on the drum samples themselves, which will be a lot of extra low end that you don't even need in your mix because you can't hear it anyways. So hope you guys enjoyed that. I love you. I hope God is blessing you. Tell me, you know what? Tell me if you guys made it this far. Tell me something in the comments down below that God has done something for you this week, or in the last month, whatever. Just tell me something that God has done for you, because I want to hear about it, and I want to continue to help you guys any way that I can. And I love you. I really do. I love you. And God loves you because he loves you. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.